Live from the shores of Lake Erie at our Menor Lagoons outdoor studio, this is the Morning Smack.
Didn't anyone ever tell you it's not nice to hit a lady? That's for Monroe. That's for little Kyle. And that's for Bob, you son of a bitch.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Morning Smack. I'm Bob Gray. That was a scene from my incredibly low-budget movie, Bigfoot. And once I started working on that project, I became a little bit involved with the Bigfoot community. I met a lot of the researchers, a lot of the guys that are in the know. And I thought it would be great to do a Bigfoot Roundtable on Fridays to investigate the latest Bigfoot sightings or talk about what's going on in the world of Bigfoot. And there are experts all around the country. You would not believe how popular it is. And, there's guys hunting and trouncing through the woods all the time. I've got a couple guests today. My first guest today is a member of law enforcement. He's an expert in deception detection. He can tell you if a Bigfoot story is true or if it's baloney, or just about everything. That man is John Freitas from Napa Valley, California. Hello, John. How are you?
Good. Very good.
Also, another Bigfoot investigator from California, Chris Contreras. Chris, you've had some sightings. You've got some interesting tracks, and we're looking forward to talking to you today as well. So, you better be funny, you better be good, and have some good Bigfoot stories. This is our first Bigfoot show. I'm sure you're going to be fine. John, to you first. Ever since Patterson Gimlin, Bigfoot has been, and if people don't know, Patterson Gimlin, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were the guys that caught and videotaped, or filmed rather, that very first Bigfoot footage that everyone knows is so famous. And I'll show you a clip of it right here. There's the that's not the clip. Don't get me in trouble, guys. We'll talk about that later. That was a scream. Here it is. So everyone has seen this iconic photo by Patterson and Gimlin. And ever since this photo came out, Bigfoot has been in the public eye, and there's probably, I don't know, 10, 20,000 Bigfoot people chasing them around right now. What do you think, John?
Since all the programs like Finding Bigfoot, Mysterious Encounters, Monster Quest, and Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot, there's been more and more and more. It's pretty saturated. I mean, I've been doing calls for, God, 25, 30 years, I guess, somewhere around there. And back when I started, there was a few programs, Leonard Nimoy sightings, to show you how long ago that was. But from that to now, it's really increased dramatically. A lot of people just get out there. It's a pastime. It's something that they like to do, or
Yeah.
they want to try it at least.
And that's what you do, Chris, too. You field reports, you hear about them, you run out and you investigate just like John does.
Yep.
And so you sent me recently a set of tracks that were in the snow that did not look human. One, it was in the snow and they were barefoot. The video was cell phone, so I show it. I'm sure it's on. But those tracks were pretty compelling, and I know you saw them too, John. So, Chris, tell me about where you were briefly, how you saw them, and what was going on.
So about 4 years ago, I moved out to Kern County to a place called Lake Isabella. It's on the Kern River, on the Kern River Valley. And I moved out there for the hot springs because I had arthritis. And, I got stalked. I got followed by one when I was 19 up in my mom's PG&E cabin up in Mount Shasta area. And so I kept it to myself for a long time till my kid was about 5 or 6 years old. I realized I was teaching him to trout fish in the same area where I got stalked, and all these shows started coming on TV. And I just told myself, I'm going to have to tell him. I didn't know if it was right to do at the time. But since I moved out to Kern County, I really I had a hard time with the whole thing, because in my mind, all of this stuff took place in the Pacific Northwest. Here I am in the Southern Sierras. So I just decided to go on the BFRO database and see if there was anything there for the county that I was in. And because there was a couple of reports by the U.S. Forest Service, I decided to follow up on those because they were the most credible reports. I mean, there were some deer hunter reports, but I decided to go on the, ones that were logged in by our federal agencies. And I myself volunteer with the U.S. Forest Service. I was helping maintain the hot springs, keep them clean and everything. So I went out there to follow up on this report because it was about the same time of the year that the report was logged in. It was just several years prior to me arriving there in Kern County. But since it was the same time of the year, about as the report was logged in by the Forest Service, I decided to go for it. And I got up on this road, Kelso Valley, and I started to get up above where I could actually see down in the wash. And I saw these massive indentions down there. So I pulled the car over, and I told my dad, I said, I'm going to go take a leak. I'm going to get out of the car and stretch out, and, I'll be right back. Sure thing. So I get down there. As soon as I got down to this dry wash area, I was going, are you kidding me? I mean, the footprints out there, and I'm a tracker. I mean, I've been doing this since 2008. I know what bear tracks are. I know I've skinned 2 bears, on the Indian reservation. I'm familiar with all the animals that are in our area in California. And these things, 17.5 inches, about 8 inches wide. They went 4.5 inches deep into the sandbar. Now I'm standing in at 220 pounds. I put all my weight on 1 foot. I could only get 3/4 of an inch. The thing is this thing wasn't alone. That was the big one, but there was 2 sets of 14-inch tracks that were almost, a good 6.5, almost 7 inches wide, and they went 3 inches in. And as I followed them, they were following deer tracks down the creek. They set down a baby, and the baby's measurements were 5 inches by 2.5 inches wide, and almost as deep as my 220 pounds, almost 3/4 of an inch. And I just said, oh my God, so I took out the camera phone, I started recording, And I got everything I could. I started to hear the car honk. My dad was wondering where I was at, started getting nervous. So I ran back. I told him, hey, I found something down there. I'm going to go and take some more pictures and get some more evidence. And got about, a good load of what was out there. Then we decided to continue on that day. And we were heading out to an area called Jawbone Canyon, and we hit the snow line. And, when I'm riding on the road, I'm always looking where things have crossed the road, just tracks, whether it's deer or whatever. And I thought I saw four-legged tracks going across the road. So I pulled over and I got out again. And that's when I got really good toe impressions. I couldn't believe it. This thing was following, obviously, a deer or an antelope, and it knuckle dragged. I got footprints, and there was actually a spot where its knuckle went into the snow too. And where I was at, there's nothing out there for 20 miles. And I really just it was so hard for me to fathom that these things were transitioning through my area. I knew they were up there in the forest and the high sequoias and those giant sequoia groves. But I didn't have any idea that these things would be coming out towards the high desert. And as I started to do some more research, because there was a lady named Claudia Ackley, and she was trying to sue the state of California to get it recognized. And I thought, there ain't nothing down there, which it's too far south. And then I saw this video of these ATV riders on the dry Mojave River and outside of Victorville, and I'm thinking those look exactly like what I found on the dry wash where I was at. And so I followed the dry Mojave riverbed to its source to Lake Arrowhead, and that's actually where Claudia Ackley was living. And
so where you're at, both you and John, it's not uncommon to see these things. Your encounter with it, with the tracks, is fascinating. And in the snow, you're lucky because you are in the high Sierras. You're going to run into these things. Now, people can see those videos on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
How do they find it on YouTube?
You go to Kern County Sasquatch Footprint Research Area by Christopher Contreras, and it'll come up. And
okay.
One thing I realized that I just had no idea about is Kern County, and I just figured this out. It just clicked in. It dawned on me. Is probably one of the most important counties in California for Sasquatch research, other than Shasta County. And the reason I'm saying this is where I was at, the Southern Sierras start to get skinnier and skinnier. And if you look at Google Earth from above, it fans out to the west like a scorpion tail into an area called Tehachapi and Fraser Park. And this area is an area where these creatures, these forest people, whatever people want to call them, are transitioning for the wintertime out of the eastern Sierras, and they can actually make it into the western Pacific mountain ranges without being detected. The only other place this is possible is Shasta County. All they have to do from North Shasta Lake to the town of Weed is cross Highway 5, and they've achieved their goal, going from the eastern mountains to the western mountain ranges. The rest of California is separated by the San Joaquin Valley, which puts them at a disadvantage.
All right. Well, Chris, it's funny you bring that up, because a lot of Bigfoot organizations have tracked where the Bigfoot is, and they've mapped them. We've got a map right here to show you how, and you could look at this, John, too, and see there's a high density in the Pacific Northwest. Ohio is cluttered with them. Florida looks pretty dense. The Appalachian Valley looks pretty powerful with Bigfoot. You see scattered ones up in Canada. However, if you look down on the map, you don't see any in Mexico. That border is clean, and I'm starting to wonder: does Bigfoot not speak Spanish, John?
Well, that's citing reports, and unfortunately, the Mexico hasn't really had a good place to report sightings down. because there is sightings, and historically, even Chris knows, being Native American, in every tribe that I know of has some reference to a Sasquatch. So it's pretty interesting that, and that includes all Americas, so South and North. The thought is that it's a Gigantopithecus that came over the land bridge back, what, 20, 30,000, 50,000 years ago, whatever it was. And the last fossil they found was a partial fossil that they found of Giganto was over in Eurasia, and it was about, I believe, 20,000 years old. Don't hold me to the dates because I can't really remember, but
Yeah, it was the Gigantopithecus was basically a jawbone, and they
yeah,
took
yeah,
the piece of the jawbone. They figured out how big this thing would be, and
yeah.
I there may be other. I found this online. I don't know if it's real or not. They
Yeah,
claim this is a Yeti hand. Take a look at this. I'm not
yeah,
sure. Have you seen this before?
I've seen it before. There's no credible there's nothing credible that would validate that being a Yeti hand or whatever. Um, there was a finger supposedly, and I think some comedian from way back in the 50s, can't remember his name, but somehow he ended up with it, and it went around, and that's another story that I don't think it's ever been authenticated.
Now,
Um,
have you and Chris gone on Bigfoot investigations together, or are you guys separately?
no, I've been up northern California, Oregon, and Washington. I haven't gone down to Southern California and did anything down there. My area that I like the best is the Klamath area where the original Bigfoot film was shot back in '67. By the way, them when I was 13 years old, Gimlin and Patterson at Sacramento State. And it was real interesting listening to them. What, 25, 30 years later, I'd meet Bob Gimlin and became friends with him. And we rode around in my truck at the site or near the site where this film was taken. And he told me the whole story about how it went down. It was really, really interesting. And some of his stories, he was into motorcycles. I mean, you do at that age, you do almost anything to make money, right? And he was doing stunt motorcycles. And
Well, he was friends with Evil Knievel, who's from
yeah,
Spokane.
exactly. Yeah, he's telling me this
Yeah.
whole story, and he says, my friend told me, Bob told me, we ought to make money. We can make money at this, Gimlin. We can make some money. He says, no, I'm going to stick to ranching. And that guy was Evil Knievel. Pretty
Well, you know
interesting.
what? Speaking of making money, and both of you guys know this, there has been a outcropping, especially in the West. There's one in West Virginia, but most of these things are in the West, where you might be driving down a wooded road, and all of a sudden,
Yep.
there's a Bigfoot museum,
Yep.
and there's no shortage of them. Believe me, that's a different one there.
Yeah.
And then what do we got here? Here's another one.
That's Willow
Yeah,
Creek. I've been there.
Yeah, Willow Creek. And then you go inside, and of course, you can buy all the merchandise, get a picture
Yep.
taken with Bigfoot.
I think my speaker was there at that time on display too. The original speaker that I used for call blasting. Interesting place, and the museums. It's a labor of love. They don't make a ton of money. It's a labor of love, and they can merchandise out of that. They make more off their merchandise than they do of people coming through.
Yeah, because everyone wants a Bigfoot keychain and this and that.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
pardon me, Chris, you know this as well as anybody. There's a huge business of Bigfoot memorabilia, and no, I got to look at this from a neutral observer's point of view. There's people that believe in Bigfoot. There's people that don't believe in Bigfoot, but they sure know how to make money off of Bigfoot, and they got the wackiest things. Check this out, Chris. The Bigfoot pencil holder. All right. So people are selling this. Everywhere you go, there's Bigfoot merch. There's a mug right there. There's another mug. I'm sure they're all available on Amazon. Warning, do not feed the Sasquatch. So my question is, oh God, I don't even remember what my question was.
The money making of the Sasquatch.
Yeah, the money making aspect of it. Do you think some people, and I know a couple that are,
Yeah.
but do you think some of these so-called Bigfoot experts, and this question's for Chris, and you don't have to name names, Chris, you don't want to get anybody in trouble with that, but do you think some of them are just in it for the money, not the Bigfoot research? They're
I
kind of taking
think that
advantage?
it has turned into some kind of almost like a cult fashion, a subcult fashion. It's so strange that people are out there making money off of all these different trinkets and memorabilia and everything under the sun. For me, what all, for me, it was the equivalent of a traumatizing situation when I was 19. When I got stalked down that logging road, I never thought that there would be a time where this thing would blow out of the cat would blow out of the bag, and then all of a sudden, all these people would just start capitalizing on something that was terrifying for me. So, I mean, there's probably a lot of people capitalizing. They haven't even had the type of experience that I've had, and they don't even know the PTSD that it caused, and I mean, holding it in for years, not knowing who to talk to about it, being afraid to talk to people about it, being afraid of being ridiculed. I came from the Silicon Valley. My mom worked for PG&E, and we were up in the Pacific Northwest every summer for weeks at a time, fishing, trout fishing, since I was a little kid. And it's just like, it's just hard for me to fathom that people who've never had anything happen to them are making bumper stickers, they're making T-shirts, they're naming their beer after it, they're microbrews.
And
movies.
Yeah, and making movies. You saw my little cheap plug when I put it. And Chris and John, there are a lot of Bigfoot expos and conferences all around the country.
Yeah.
I've been to the Ohio Bigfoot Expo. I was there in 2009, 2010, and but now they've gotten even bigger. And now the Bigfoot Expo is run by a different guy. I can't even get him to return my call to rent a table. It's so big, and people are paying top dollar for those tables.
Yep.
Because now instead of getting 1,000 people at these conventions, you're getting 9,000 or 10,000 people to look for Bigfoot, and they'll do excursions. They'll do a little hike around. But I've got a question for you, since you're an expert in deception detection, because at some of these conferences, I've talked to people, and they've sworn that they've seen Bigfoot 12 times. And my response to them is, after the fourth time, you didn't have a camera around your neck 24/7. And so what's the deal with those people, John? Why no camera? And why is it an attention that they're looking for? You would know better than anyone.
Well, everybody has a motive. When I get tons of calls of tip lines and things like that. And they say, well, just out of the goodness of their heart or whatever it may be. Sorry about the camera shake. But everybody has a reason, whether it be monetary, fame, or whatever it might be. And, in the Sasquatch world, or in that fringe, I've met quite a few people that just can't tell the truth. And it's pretty evident right away. I size them up real quick, and a lot of people won't even talk to me. There was one real famous thing of a killing of a Bigfoot. The guy avoided me like the plague. He absolutely, he didn't want to talk to me, and it's just the way it is. People, I'm not saying that he was lying or not, because I never got a chance to talk to him, but I saw video clips enough to convince me that it was bullshit.
Well, for the audience sake, people, if they missed it at the beginning of the show, you've been in law enforcement for about 40 years.
Yeah.
You're an expert in deception detection.
I teach it throughout the United States and Canada.
Yeah. So when somebody's, the telltale signs
Yes.
And what are some of those signs so people
Well,
at home know?
they're
So when they're being interrogated by you, they don't do it.
listen. No, one of the things that happens in classes, they say, "Well, can you pass through um, this interrogation?" No, you can't. You can't. These are subconscious things that you react to, and it doesn't matter whether I give the training or not. My ex-wife used to help me out, and a lot of people would say, "Why in the hell do you have her helping you?" Because I mean, obvious. Um, but there's telltale signs. There's visual IQs. There's lower torso movement, muscle mass. A couple of things that people can look out for is the visual IQs. And just to remind you, I'm not saying that if somebody does this, they're lying. You have to pick up a few gestures of what they're doing. But the visual IQs is usually down to the left is recall, or excuse me, internal dialogue. Up to the right is recall. So, for example, if you ask a question like, what was your sixth grade teacher's name? If they look down to the left for internal dialogue, why would they be doing that? They would have to look up to the right for recall. So, not saying that they're lying with internal dialogue, but why would you look internally to develop an answer for that particular question? So there, and there's other cues. There's the lower torso, the anxiety that builds up in a question, and things like that. But body language, you're looking at that. The breathing patterns, how they answer you, what they say, you know.
And how many people that you've talked to have flunked the John Freitas test?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few. And there's one big Bigfoot organization that the head guy there, whatever he's called, would not be very happy with me because I'd come up with things of bullshit. In fact, Penn and Teller did a show called Bullshit, and they had this Bigfoot running down in a gully. So I ended up contacting the reporting person that put this out, and right away I could tell that there's something fishy about this whole thing. His name was Mark Nelson, and I have some recordings. I don't know where they're at, but it's interesting to listen to this guy. Anyway, I interviewed him 3 times on the phone, never in person, and each time it got worse and worse. And finally, I called it bullshit. This is nothing but bullshit. These are inconsistent. He was inconsistent about the area that he said he was in, and the terrain that this was at was it didn't exist around this Sonoma. If anybody wants to look up Sonoma Bigfoot, you'll see my write-up in that of how I interviewed the guy and my conclusion and bullshit. Well, BFRO got really pissed, and they said, "Oh, this is authentic. He's pushy. He's a bully." Talking about me, right? And yeah, this is true. And I have the screenshots from the website. About 2 or 3 months later, I see an advertisement on TV, Penn and Teller, about bullshit. And this guy is standing there in a Bigfoot costume, much like the one from your movie, with the head underneath his arm on the phone going, "Honey, I can't be home. We got to shoot this again, blah, blah, blah." And then the bullshit, Penn and Teller bullshit and cryptozoology, all this, which I thought was real good because during this whole period of time, all these people go, "Yeah, John, you're wrong. That's an old friend." I'm looking at an old friend. I'm going, "Fuck me. This is just, it was incredible." And here's what I say.
All right.
You know what I mean?
So
it's
yeah.
kind of like,
no, there's hoaxers. There's the guy about 7 years ago that put that Bigfoot costume and filled it with possum entrails in a freezer.
yeah,
We know about that guy. I mean, he got a lot of publicity, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and you know what? And I don't mind those hoaxes like that. People like, there's other people that get really upset, but really it puts a check on everybody. Don't be so quick to believe this bullshit. I mean, and in a fringe like that, it brings all sorts of people for whatever reason they want to be heard.
I was hoping that thing was real. So I'll start with you, Chris. I did. I wanted that thing to be real. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? So, so Chris, there's been so many Bigfoot stories and encounters, and a lot of them terrifying that you've heard of. Which is the one that you feel has the most credence? And make it. We'll just make it real brief because we want to get to some other things. Which Bigfoot encounter that you've heard of has the most credence and is the scariest that you've ever heard?
There was so there's these things called Klamath screams, and that was one of the reasons I was attracted to John Freitas. Drawn to him because he actually documented these screams in 1993 in a place called Klamath Glen. In 1995, I would be stationed in the California Conservation Corps, less than 2 miles away from where this, incident that John covered in 1993, and and I heard those screams at my mom's PG&E cabin in 1989, and that was 2 years before I would get stalkwalked down this logging road in the same spot, on the same road that I heard the screams 3 years prior in 1989.
And you know what,
I
Chris?
was listening to this story about this woman. She was a conservationist, and she decided, and this shit drives me crazy when people decide to do solo, like that with the Reese Witherspoon where she's hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. That drives me nuts thinking of a woman going solo out in the backcountry like that, or even a man going solo from just because of what happened to me, the trauma. But she was out in a place called the Woolly Creek Drainage, which is tributary to the Salmon River up there in the Marble Mountains. And she was, doing her nature thing, documenting, journaling along the way. And it started to get dark. She decided that she was going to call it a night. And she saw this boulder field going up to this cliff, and there was a small waterfall coming off. And she decided to hike up and make camp for the night at the top of this this boulder field, which is something that, David Paulides mentions that berry patches, boulder fields, and swamps are the leading places people go missing. Now she gets up on the top of this cliff edge and climbs up, makes her bed, makes her camp, writes a little bit in her journal, and lays down. And as she's starting to kind of doze off, she hears this screaming, this roaring going on. And she says at first, it really sounds like it wasn't any threat to her. It sounded like it was 1.5 miles away. But as she's sitting there in her sleeping bag listening, it's getting closer, like it's making a beeline for her location. And she starts freaking out. And this thing, she hears it coming up the boulder field, and she sees this hand grab the top of the cliff there where she just climbed up and made camp, and just hoisted itself up, and it lands on its feet, and it kind of does a like a sniff of, takes a big of the air and looks right at her, and she urinates in her sleeping bag. Those are the kind of details that
I'm surprised it was just a urination.
Yeah, and this thing it went up and it took off and went to the top of this mountain and continued to howl until like 4:30 in the morning, and she didn't get a wink of sleep. As soon as day broke, she wrote in her journal, she got up and grabbed her wet sleeping bag and got the hell out of there. And but when I had heard the screams in 1989, same thing happened. Me and my friends.
Chris, let's take a listen to that. This is the Klamath screams. Let's see if it gives you goosebumps like when you heard it yourself. Check this out.
never get
Yeah.
tired of that. I'll never get used to that sound. It always brings back goosebumps because 1989,
Yeah. Well,
when we were in my mom's PG&E cabin, me and my friend Steve snuck out, and we were trying to act cool with the other girls from the other cabins. A couple other people snuck out, and we were all on this dam, and we're playing Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that. But at the end of the night, my friend had this Umaguma tape, and it had this song called "Several Species of Small Furry Animals Gathered Together in a Cave, Grooving with the Pick," and it just sounds like raccoons, monkeys, squirrels, all kind of having like this smorgasbord thing. And we played that over out the spillway of this dam, and we heard that scream out in the distance, and we looked at each other like, what the hell did that? What did that? And
California is not the only one that has a scream.
Yeah.
One that's just as haunting. It's a shorter clip. This is the Ohio scream that was recorded at Salt Fork. Check this out.
yeah,
John,
Yeah.
John, that was a loud roar you had there from Ohio.
Yeah.
And Ohio, Salt Fork in particular, has a ton of sightings. Have you ever been out to Salt Fork yet?
No, I haven't, but I have heard that call. I took a Lonely Planet. If you ever heard of that, it's our the Trekker. I forgot exactly what their new name, but the Lonely Planet was a PBS station, and a couple of girls came out from England, kind of scoping out what I was doing. I was doing these calls, and we went way upriver. We got dropped off by boat. We set up camp. I did some calls. I put my stuff away. And about a half hour later, heard that call come across, and the girls were just they were paralyzed, and that was right across the river, and that led up to a sighting from a Native American elder right there within the week, and then a week later, Bobo was up there because we went up there, and he went up there during the week because I was still working, and he's called me at 3:00 in the morning. He says, "They're all around me, John. They're all around me. What do I do?" And I said, "Calm down, man. Where are you at?" He told me he was sitting out in the middle of a meadow. So we went up the following week and we set up. I had him go to the top of the hill. We were really shy on equipment, and he had a night vision. And I'm doing a coast to coast radio show and live Bigfoot hunt. And so we're doing the calls. The reception's bad. The guy, Jeff Wrench, told me, "Can you move up, get a little bit better signal for the radio?" I said, "Yeah." So I moved up. I left Manny back there manning the broadcaster with the speaker. I drove up and says, "When I hit my brakes, go ahead and let out a call," because there's no communication between him and me, just between me and Bobo. So we're doing that in the Dog and Pony Show. That's all it was, and just kind of what we're doing. And then I hear some footfalls right up to me. Now, the forest is so thick I can't see, but it's within 10 feet from me. And I hear it, and I'm saying, "Well, what's going on?" And I'm on the radio, and it's getting a little bit more intense during this period of time. And I'm on the radio with Bobo saying, "Do you see anything?" Someone's right next to me. And I could hear it grunting. In fact, there's on the recording, you can hear the grunts and growls of this thing. And then it walked away. So this went on for about 10, 15 minutes. And all of a sudden over the radio, Bo goes, "John, that's looking right at you." I go, "Shit." So what would happen is walk away and it would stand next to the snake about 50 feet away from me out in the clear cut. And it was looking at me going back and forth, back and forth. And going, "Shit." And then it would come up to me and back and forth. It happened probably 10 times.
Wow.
But I didn't want to shine any light or anything because I wanted to see, but I didn't even have my pistol with me. Manny had it behind me because it was such a quick move. So I'm sitting there in a convertible with a bag phone and the receiver right here next to my face, lighting up my face. So I'm sure that whatever it was wondering what the hell I'm doing out there. And Bobo had night vision. He's with the nurse, and they're passing back and forth. "You see what I see?" a typical thing of you're looking at something and you just don't believe what you're seeing. So anyway, long story short, it stopped. The next morning, we went out there and we saw it. The ground was rock hard, but there was a lot of duff on it, and that was disturbed. Couldn't find any footprints or anything like that, but we could see the pathway. We looked for hair and everything. Couldn't find any physical evidence on that. But
it's interesting. You've never seen him.
Nope.
Or it or her or
whatever the hell
Bigfoot is.
And whatever was next to me, I don't know. Bobo said it was a Bigfoot. I have to believe him, but
the point is, you've never seen him,
no.
And you've been traipsing the forest for a long time, and you're still dedicated to the pursuit, just like Chris is.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's more of an interest than anything to me. And once I see him, fuck, I'm going to go do something else. I don't know what.
Now, do a lot of either one of you can answer this. Do a lot of people that believe in Bigfoot also believe in UFOs and Loch Ness Monster and all the other cryptozoology?
So here's
Chris, just maybe.
Okay, so I had to go up to this place, and I'm not going to tell you because of confidentiality and all that, but I had to go. It was way up in the woods. It was 14 miles up this dirt road, or 17 miles, one or the other. And it was way back there. It was the only place back there, and had to go up there. I was investigating for this case. I had to talk to this guy. So I met at the gate with this guy in camos. So I know he's a survivalist, and just I got to mind myself. Really a nice house and all that. So anyway, fast forward about a year and a half, and somebody said, and this wasn't Bigfoot related. This is a criminal case, right? That I was doing. Fast forward about a year and a half, and get a report of a Bigfoot sighting, and the girl that saw it has a tuft of hair because it crossed the barbed wire fence. Same place. So I go up there, and I'm talking to her, and I'm going, yeah, that's a pretty nice house there. I've been here before. And do you live there? And she says, oh, no, it's haunted. I'm going, oh, crap. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the whole day traveling way back here. And then she starts talking about UFOs and their blue light, and it's kind of scanning the ground and all that. And she's telling me about when it happened. And I'm just thinking to myself, my God, now this is off. And I didn't believe in any of this. And on my way back, I'm thinking to myself, it's pretty legit, but I heard, but I don't believe it because of other shit. And she said it's haunted the house. It went on and on, right? And we had all three, Bigfoot, UFO stuff. And I'm on my way back down this road. Took about 3 hours traveling. It was really bad road. And on my way back, I'm thinking, shit. I remember the dispatch of blue lights coming over from this area into the town of Fort Dick, which is just north of Crescent. And I'm thinking, that might have something to do with it. So it all light up all the time. And it was on the radio. There, these blue lights were coming down, and I remember hearing the deputy say, I don't know what it is, but it's not an airplane. And there was a lot of calls about that. So I'm thinking, maybe there is something there. And I started following up on that.
Well, that's a sighting, though, right? That was an actual sighting.
Yeah.
I'm just querying if Bigfooters and aliens and Loch Ness Monster and Chupacabra go hand in hand. If you're going to believe in one, you might as well believe in all of them, right?
It's a fringe. I don't believe. I don't know anything about Loch Ness. I have zero interest in it. I've seen things in the sky that I can't. Is it a UFO? To me,
so have I. Yeah. So which is more likely? And Chris, you can answer this. Which is more likely, that there's aliens visiting the planet or Bigfoot's running around the woods?
Well, from what I've gathered, from doing the research and digging, just digging, there's been a few things that stood out to me. Uh, there was a Bigfoot book, I forget which book it was, but these guys saw lights out there outside of Red Bluff in a place called Balls Ferry. They were poaching salmon at night, and they saw these lights, and when they realized something was following them in the bushes, they got out there, they reported, they went out with law enforcement, and they found huge tracks out there. They saw the lights that didn't, fit in. When I moved to Kern County and I was looking out to just different roads, we were just exploring different roads. I went out on this dirt road that went right into the sycamore swamp, and it was still cold, wet, and rainy. There would be nobody out there barefooted. And I started finding barefooted footprints in the mud out there. And I followed them up to the origin where they kind of originated from. And strange and oddly enough, because the whole area was just lush from the rain that we had in 2019, there was these two circular spots that it looked like somebody had like a burn pile, but there was no charcoal or anything. There were perfectly round burnt spots out in the field, and the tracks went right into these burnt spots. The ground had this weird crust. There was no charcoal from like somebody's burn pile, and it was like as if, when you see battery crust on a terminal, that yellowish kind of, it was like orangish yellowish corrosion burnt on the ground. Now, there was a story about the Hopis talking about Silly Bear. There was a legend where they saw a silver disc come land, into their area, and three hairy humanoids jumped out. And they said that these things would sit there and hold counsel and eat with them in the evening, and they called them Silly Bear because they walked on 2 feet. Now, in 1962, Roger Patterson, and I was reading this out of NABS, which is North America Bigfoot Search, that was headed by David Polites, said in a shoebox letter that Patterson, I think it was Patterson, saw a silver disc come into Hoopa Valley, and through one of the portholes, it was hovering there in the valley, through its porthole, he saw a hairy humanoid manning the craft. That's 1962. So, 9 years later, all of a sudden, George Lucas comes out with Star Wars, and guess who's in charge of the co-pilot of the Millennium Falcon? So I don't know. I just, I try to put these hand in glove scenarios and just see if it makes sense. But yeah, it's
Very
crazy.
interesting. So you think there's a possibility that Bigfoot and UFOs go hand in hand, which that's
I'm
what it sounds like.
open-minded. Yeah.
So what's next? Oh, by the way, folks, if you're just joining us, we're with John Freitas and Chris Contreras, both Bigfoot investigators out west of California. So John, because we're running out of time here, what's next for you? What's your next Bigfoot hunt? Do you plan on going to any of these conferences or expos? What's going on with you?
I'm going up north. There is some activity and possibly a film. Got some video of one or a few of them. And so I'm headed up north, and I'm real close to retirement. I'm about ready to pull the plug. Once I pull the plug, I'm going to be going full time up around there and playing around.
When you say pull the plug, you mean retire, not
Yeah.
And what about you, Chris? You got any Bigfoot hunts as we're running out of time?
So, the guy who got messed up in the hoax with the Bigfoot in the box actually reached out to me, that Tom Biscardi. He wanted me to go. He wants to pay for me to go out to Thailand with a monk and go look for this thing called a ring pandek in December. I'm still deciding if I'd like to just get out and go to Thailand just for the hell of it, because it'd be something to do. But the area where I'm at in Kern County, what I've found is what I would call a Bigfoot honey hole. And there's only one other guy I know that actually has a same type of place where, because I've been there for 4 years in a row, and during the month of December, these tracks seem to show up just like they got a dinner date, or they're using the stars or whatever, but they show up every year right there in December. And the only other guy I know who has a spot like that is Jamie Avalos, who was on Monster Quest, Sierra Sasquatch. He's been going out to June Lake every wintertime, and he's finding these footprints at the same place, same time every year, year after year. And
All right. Well, hey, dude, that sounds like a great trip. Have fun with Biscardi.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think I'd just like to get out. If he's going to pay for me to go somewhere, I mean, I have a hard time. I'm still, I know that Rick Dyer and all those guys, they took him for a ride. I don't know how much of involvement he had. I mean, he's a millionaire and he had a really good reputation. It's hard for me to think of a man throwing his reputation in the trash for a $300 monkey suit. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
It looked like my costume from the
hard to
movie,
say.
actually.
No, yours
All
was
right.
much better, Bob.
Yeah.
His was from eBay.
Yeah, no, mine was not a cheap suit.
No. Okay.
All right, so we've had conversations today. If you're just tuning in at home, John Freitas and Chris Contreras, two Bigfoot investigators. Thank you, fellas. I really appreciate you stopping by today. It's been a wonderful chat. You've shed some light on some things. Next time, we'll try to get a few more guys in here and just beat the hell out of each other. And
it's really opinionated. Yeah, it's an easy task to accomplish. That's for sure.
Right. I'm just here to let you guys ramble on, and that's how I like to do the show. So I appreciate it.
One of the reasons I was, mainly really just drawn to John Freitas is he's a human walking lie detector test, and I can sit there and I can tell, hey, man, this shit happened to me, and this is just something that's really just fudged with my head for years. And he could see me and go, you know what, hey, son, it's okay, relax. And if I was sitting there BSing him, he's going to say, there's the door, my office. Don't let it hit you in the butt. I love this guy. He's a good man.
Yeah, thanks, good fella. All right, fellas, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon. We'll try to do this again every week on Friday, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, fellas.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, so there they go. John Freitas and Chris Contreras, two Bigfoot investigators. That was fun, interesting. And there's a lot of Bigfoot people out there. The problem was we do the show at 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. It's still 7 a.m. when they're coming on the West Coast. So to get some of these guys, they're probably still drunken in bed, honestly. So you got to catch me next week. I can't reveal, but we've got some plans for you. I think you're going to like it. Let's talk real quick. Let me get it about our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we'd be nothing. G-Licious Pizza in Menor, home of the Big Dill and that barbecue chicken pizza. Fantastic. Go see Greg over there. Lake Laser Engraving. Ben actually laser engraved my friend's face on my stainless steel mug. He can take a laser beam and engrave any photo you've got on the steel, aluminum, wood, leather. It doesn't matter. He's really good at that. A porta potty guy went by, didn't even drop off my porta potty. Son of a. Anyhow, also we've got Red Hawk Grill, largest backyard patio in all of Lake County. That place is fun. You got to try the scallops too. And Embers Fireplaces on Menor Avenue. Go see Ben Holt. Not only do they do fireplaces, it's barbecue season. They've got the best barbecue grills around. And we've got the Great Treasures Warehouse, 16,000 square foot store in the Great Lakes Mall. Anything you want, they've got it in there. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And finally, if you're hungry, I mean really hungry, you got to go to the Great Scott Tavern in Euclid. Go see my boy Bob. And you know what? If you get the macaroni and cheese, sweet Jesus, it's amazing. You won't believe how much macaroni and cheese. So until next week, I'll see you later. I love you. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.